Okay, let's rock and roll. Everyone's excited about the Oculus Quest 2. People are saying it might be the breakthrough device that opens the floodgates to a new world of virtual reality media. I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm not really a tech commentator, and I have no idea which way the tech industry is moving. But in conversations with friends and acquaintances, I have noticed a lot more people seem to be getting VR headsets than in the past. So it might be true. Regardless, I'm still over here with this, my original Oculus Quest. Yeah, the new ones are a bit shinier, but I haven't seen the need to invest in the upgrade yet. Plus, black is more my color anyway. But the point of this video isn't to examine the future of VR technology, or even to discuss the implications of some of Facebook's policies with regards to the Oculus headsets. Though tech policy certainly could be the subject of a horror video in and of itself. The point is to examine whether horror in VR is any good. Before we get into specifics, we could just survey the market a little bit, and one thing becomes abundantly clear. These Oculus headsets offer a wide variety of programming. While a lot of people immediately associate VR technology with simple yet inexplicably addictive games like Beat Saber, the fact is, there really is something for everyone in this virtual world. Of course, those games like Beat Saber with mass appeal will always be popular, but there are apps ranging from productivity tools to games and movies, spanning all genres. Some people have taken to using more vigorous apps for fitness purposes, while others use more sedentary applications just to watch video in an immersive setting. In fact, once you can get used to the experience, it can be fun just to tune out the real world and spend some time in virtual reality, almost regardless of the particular content you choose. Getting used to the experience can be an issue for some people though. I never struggled with it personally, but virtual reality sickness, so I've been told, can be a singularly insidious form of motion sickness. New users would be well advised to start out with milder experiences until they see how they react. One of the things I've particularly enjoyed is the opportunity to watch 3D movies without the little red and green glasses. Yes, there's a certain nostalgic attraction to the little cardboard glasses that sometimes come in DVD cases and used to come in VHS cases, but they simply don't hold a candle to the 3D capabilities of a VR headset. In fact, I recently watched Final Destination 5 in 3D using the Fandango Now app in my Oculus. It may not be the best movie in the world, but the film's 3D gags combined with the Oculus headset made the whole thing a blast. Unfortunately, there are two drawbacks to watching movies this way. Probably the most important is that it's a solo experience. I watch plenty of movies alone, so that's not a problem for me, but if you want to watch a 3D movie for your family movie night, you're either going to have to invest in a 3D television or stick with the little cardboard glasses. The other problem is that the market just hasn't quite caught up with the technology yet. As I just said, it's clearly possible to watch some 3D movies using the Oculus, but many of the movie playing apps don't give you 3D options yet. Both Netflix and Amazon have Oculus apps, for instance, but the movies are still shown in 2D, just within a sort of virtual theater. The Fandango Now app, as I mentioned, is one of the few ways to actually get 3D movies, but expect to pay premium prices for them. Fortunately, as devices like the Oculus grow in popularity, I think more companies will start offering 3D options, and I think that's a good thing. For me, 3D movies have always seemed little more than a novelty, but these headsets, with a bit of further development, might be just the breakthrough we've been waiting for to produce an actually viable home 3D experience. That having been said, if 3D movies is your main reason for considering a VR headset, you might be well advised to wait just a little bit longer until the market catches up. But putting Hollywood aside, there's now a growing industry of smaller scale immersive cinematic experiences. Even right here on YouTube, there are whole sections of videos filmed either in a 180 degree or a 360 degree virtual reality 3D setting. Admittedly, a lot of these videos are of little interest to horror fans. Lots of people have just uploaded virtual reality tours of convention showrooms or roller coaster rides, and those don't necessarily appeal to me as anything more than a novelty. That having been said, there's already a wide selection of virtual reality horror experiences right here on YouTube. And YouTube isn't the only site offering this technology. Are all of those films good? Of course not. Most of them seem like the work of amateurs just exploring the possibilities with a new technology, but some of them are actually well worth watching. And because those don't need to wait for Hollywood studios and distributors to catch up, I think we can expect the Oculus 2 to bring us a sort of renaissance in virtual reality short horror films in the coming months and years. Even more than immersive films though, probably the main reason people buy a VR headset like the Oculus Quest is to play games. And it seems like the technology is the perfect match for the horror genre. It's all well and good to play a shooting game, of course, and the immersive setting brings whole new meaning to the term first-person shooter, but there's really not a whole lot of added value there from an emotional or narrative perspective. But with horror, I think, there's a lot of added value. Even those of us completely desensitized to the jump scares we see in the movies can be vulnerable to a well-done scare when it feels like we're actually there. Once again, I fully expect the market of available horror titles to expand significantly in the coming years, but there are already quite a few horror titles available for the Oculus Quest or the Oculus Quest 2. Let's take a look at just a couple of them. The first of these is one of the oldest VR horror experiences, a game called Dreadhalls. Let's see what it looks like. Admittedly, the game is pretty light on story, consisting of little more than a dungeon crawl with some mildly creepy creatures around. And the graphics are certainly nothing to write home about. But it does have a few good horror visuals and a couple of scares worth experiencing for yourself, even if they are just jump scares without a whole lot of substance to them. Still, for just about $10, you really can't go wrong. Among the most recent and by far the most expensive of the horror games I tested is The Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners. It's not cheap, coming in at no less than $40, almost as much as a brand new console video game, and more than a console game that's a couple years old. What do you get for your money? Well, for my money, you get one of the best, if not the best, zombie games yet to come out. The virtual reality setting makes the game seem a lot more realistic, and that realism extends to some of the game's mechanics. The world seems like a real world, populated both by zombies and by a variety of living characters with whom you can interact. You can also interact with much of the environment, including picking up objects or even climbing drain pipes. The variety of possible zombie kills is quite extraordinary and helps keep the game fresh. The realism is also aided by the fact that in the virtual reality setting, aiming guns or swinging axes actually takes a bit of precision that simply isn't required in many console or PC games. Even better, your weapons will wear down over time and ammo is in short supply, so you have to constantly improve your inventory. There aren't really any jump scares. In fact, like much of the zombie subgenre these days, the game is more of an action game in a horror setting than it is a horror game per se, but it's still well worth your investment. Next up is a game that wasn't originally designed for virtual reality, and that's Blair Witch. Originally, this was an Xbox game based on the film franchise, but it was reworked and turned into a virtual reality game for the Oculus Quest in October of 2020. Because of that, it doesn't use the VR mechanics to the extent that some of these other games do, and the game itself is far from the greatest horror game ever. That having been said, especially if you're a fan of the Blair Witch Project, there's a lot to be said for wandering around some creepy woods with your in-game dog, Bullet. Despite its few shortcomings, it's one of the more visually attractive and immersive VR experiences I've tried, and is well worth looking at. Though, if you've already played the Xbox version, you probably don't need to try it again just to see what it's like in virtual reality. Finally, we have the Exorcist Legion Vr. Though far from the last VR horror experience on the market, it's the last one I tested for the purpose of this video, and in many ways, I've saved the best for last. Unlike some of the other selections, the Exorcist doesn't offer much in the way of gameplay. Mostly, you just explore the creepy setting until you find the items you need to find to trigger the next scripted events. But what it lacks in gameplay, it more than makes up for in immersion. From truly horrific visuals to the most effective jump scares of any of the games in this lineup, The Exorcist came closest to actually scaring me. In fact, it came the closest not just of these games, but of any games to giving me a good scare. And given the amount of horror I consume, that is saying something. One could fairly argue that it stands on the shoulders of giants in following up one of the greatest horror franchises of all time, and that's quite true. But in this case, I think its efficacy can be most accurately chalked up to the way it creates perhaps the most truly immersive of all the experiences I've tried. When you're wandering around investigating a crime in a church, it truly feels like you're really there. If you have an Oculus Quest and can afford only one horror game, you really can't go wrong with The Exorcist. So there you have it, a decent cross-section of all the horror available in virtual reality. Of course, there's a lot more out there, some of which I've tried and some of which I'm still looking forward to. But this handful of ideas will give you an excellent start. And as I said before, though I give The Exorcist Legion my highest recommendation of any of these games, they're all worth playing and they all have certain advantages. So what does that mean for the future of horror in virtual reality? Is VR going to be the future of our favorite genre? Well, the immersive environment lends itself to horror like nothing else. This technology and this genre really do seem to be made for each other. That having been said, the inconvenience of having to put on a headset and find a suitable place to play surely means existing forms of media aren't going to go away. There's also a not insignificant issue in that when you buy content for a platform like the Oculus, you're getting digital-only media. For someone like me, who likes physical media and likes to curate my own private library, that's a real downside. However, the advantage of a medium that's capable of delivering slight scares even to horror fans is not to be underestimated. I envision two possible futures, and they're not mutually exclusive. It's possible that we all find VR so effective only because it's so new to us, and that once more films and games come out in this medium, we'll all end up desensitized to it. It's also possible that the VR market could continue to grow until there are entire libraries of virtual reality horror. The reality is probably somewhere in between the two. Either way, at least for now, I'm really excited to see the new possibilities for horror in virtual reality. And I see our time together has once again come to an end. For those of you who liked this video and subscribed to my channel, I thank you. For those of you who haven't, I invite you to do so and to join me as I explore anything and everything horror. And as a quick reminder, if you're watching this when it's first posted in January of 2021, I am currently hosting a giveaway contest here on my channel, so be sure to check for the link to that down in the What's It. And finally, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care and stay scared.